What are we going to teach today? What are we teaching on this course? As I mentioned earlier, there's two main elements, life coaching and NLP. What's the difference and why do we teach both? So when I started in this industry, life coaching and NLP were taught separately. It was seen as two completely different skill sets or disciplines. And I started in this industry and I got confused. When am I a life coach? When am I an NLP? Which one when? And in reality, you should be able to apply both in a session. So when I started training, I took the coaching component and the NLP component and I merged the two. So the info in the course is sufficient for a full life coaching certification and a full NLP certification. But the way I train them is merged. And the reason for that is I don't want you guys to wonder which cap am I wearing. You wear both at the same time. If we learn them in the merge mannerism, we apply them in the merge mannerism. So what is the main difference between the two and why do we teach both? If we look at the brain, we've got a area of the brain called the conscious, which is more on your frontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that focuses, the part of the brain that's, let's say, the attention part of the brain. It's also the logical part of the brain. It's also a very critical part of the brain. It's the part of the brain that's aware of time, that wants to strategize, build goal plans, hypothesize, and build strategies. So that part of the brain is the one that says, where am I coming from? Where am I now? And where would I like to go? What would I like to achieve? From a logic platform, that's what that part of the brain does. How that plan looks, what are the steps I need to take, what qualifications, experience do I need, all of those elements is in that part of the brain. But the challenge we have in life is that sometimes we have the most magnificent plan, but we don't get there. There are what's called limiting beliefs. Those are beliefs we hold in our deeper subconscious that are not logic belief systems. These are subconscious beliefs, and we have thousands of beliefs, if not millions. But some beliefs, and these could be beliefs about the environment, could be beliefs about political situation in the country or the country. It could be beliefs about your own skills, could be beliefs about the company you work for, could be beliefs about your past or your future or your current scenario. If there's a belief in your mind, in your deep subconscious mind, that is restricting you from progressing into the best version of you, that's called a limiting belief. So what if we've got the best logic strategy, but deep in my subconscious, there's a handbrake. There's something holding me back. We need to deal with that. And that's where the NLP component comes in. NLP focuses more on the deep subconscious. And there are not just beliefs in there, there's values in there, there are thought patterns in there are behaviors, there are reactions, there's feedback processes, there's information loops, there's a huge element, and we're going to unpack that element and we're going to deal with it and teach you guys techniques on how to assist people and sometimes yourself to reframe some of the things in your subconscious. And the reason we need to do that is if I only deal with a subconscious mind, there's no logic strategy, then people don't achieve. If I only deal with a logic mind and there's something in the subconscious, they don't achieve. That's why I believe these two disciplines are merged. Now I can build a logic strategy plan, remove the obstacles on the journey, and assist people and guide them to a point where they can actually achieve what they dream and desire and were created to achieve. All humans, in my opinion, are magnificent, and our levels of possibility are way higher than what we've ever been able to imagine. So the cool thing about this industry is we take people on their journey to achieve. Does that make sense? Logic sense to everybody? Cool? So what is it about the two parts of the brain that we need to remember or know about from the word go? The first thing is most people believe that most decisions are made on a conscious level. They think that while you're awake and you're thinking and you're planning and you're strategizing, I'm going to buy that car, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go to the shop and do that. They do believe that most decisions are made on that level, which is actually not true. Most decisions are made on a subconscious level. There's two parts of the brain. Both parts make decisions, and those decisions are not always the same. You can look at it from a different perspective and say, well, maybe the subconscious doesn't always make the decisions, but it does influence the outcomes. And let's talk about a couple of examples. I mentioned one already. Going to the shop, who's ever done that? Where you go to the shop to buy bread and milk, and you came out with a whole lot of stuff and there's no bread and milk. How did that happen? Logically, intellectually, you absolutely knew what you were supposed to do, but something else made a different decision. It's not that you cannot focus, you are actually normal. Welcome to the human race. Forgive yourself for doing that. It's normal. Your subconscious made a different decision. Cool? Who's ever gone into a shop to go buy clothing? You know you need a pair of pants, a pair of blue jeans, and you go to the shopping center to buy a pair of blue jeans. That's what you're going in for. That's your logic, analytical strategy. Who's come out with a whole lot of other stuff, sometimes not even clothes, but there's no blue jeans? And you come home, you go, oh my goodness gracious, I've overspent. Now here's the thing. That's when we spend a little bit of too much money. Who knows? Let me ask this. Who knows you've got to count your money? You've got to work diligently with your money. Everybody here, you know you've got a budget, you've got to work diligently with your money. Have you ever bought something you didn't need in the moment, in the spur of the moment? Compulsive buying. Yep. Ever done that? Absolutely, we all have. Which part of the brain makes that decision? Your deeper subconscious. Your deeper subconscious. Who's got a gym contract? Is anybody here with a gym contract? Who's had a gym contract? Let's ask that question. Because this is my favorite story. So here's a typical person that takes out a gym contract. And I'm going to explain the difference between the conscious and the subconscious here. So the average person goes, looks at other people that look amazing. And they talk to their friends and their family members and they say, I also want to look like that. How do they look like that? Well, they go on diets, they eat chicken and broccoli only, and they gym. Oh, okay. So what you do is you then go to the gym and you sign up. Logic, strategy, right? Then you go to Sportsman's Warehouse and you buy the outfits. Come on, be honest. That's the first thing you did before you went to the gym. Bought the outfits. Then you go to the gym day one and you're like, hey man, acting as if you know what's going on, but you're learning. Day two, you're starting to figure it out. Day three, you're on those machines and you're pumping and you feel the pain and you're sweating. You know, I'm going to look amazing soon. Day four, you wait. Day five, you're in there. Day six, your enthusiasm is a little bit rendered because your body's starting to ache. Yes, like day seven, you go, oh, ouch. Wait a minute. When God created the world, he rested on day seven. Let me rest today. And day 8, you're still resting. And day 9, you're still resting. A month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, you see that debit going down off your bank. Kitching! I'll get there tomorrow. I'll go next time. I'll go again. Logically, you know you want to go. Subconsciously, your brain is saying, mm-mm. But somehow you can't get yourself to cancel that contract. Now that debit order has been going off for a couple of months, now your brain goes. They go to the gym. They're disciplined. There's something about those people that's amazing. I don't go to the gym. There's something about me that's wrong. I'm undisciplined. And your brain goes, I'll tell you what, let me prove you how undisciplined you are. Let me show you other areas of your life where you're also undisciplined. And that's exactly what the brain does. The one part operates on the conscious level, the other part operates on the subconscious level. When we learn to understand how we make these decisions, what are the things that influence these decisions? How can we control and change how we make decisions? that's the moment we start empowering ourselves. Einstein said a beautiful statement. He says, we cannot solve a problem with the same mindset that created it. So if somebody asks me, Dion, what do you do for a living? My short answer is usually, I teach people to think differently. Change starts with different thought patterns. Our logic analytical brain sometimes need a refresher, an upgrade, and we need a synchronization between the logic brain and the deeper subconscious brain. And very often we need to just bring these two closer together. If your conscious brain says, I want to do this, but the subconscious brain says, no, I want to do that. What is going to happen is you're going to find yourself in a state of turmoil. You're going to find yourself in a state where the decisions you make on a logic level are not manifesting in your life. They're just not happening. And the result of that is anxiety, it's negative emotional states, it's frustration, irritation levels, deep sense of unhappiness, sometimes even depression. So when these two parts or thought patterns are complete opposites of each other, you're going to experience a lot of disruption in your own life. You're going to have deep states of discomfort. So what do we do as coaches very often? We just bring these two closer so that the conscious and the subconscious are aligned. When I make a decision on a conscious level, my subconscious supports it. My default behavioral patterns and habits support it. That's how we achieve. We need to be fully aligned with every fiber of who we are. And we are magnificent cybernetic systems. We have a mind, yes, but we also have a body, which means we have physical habits, we have emotional habits, we have behavioral habits, we've got mental habits, we've got a variety of different patterns that are constantly occurring in our lives. We need to learn how to identify them, how to install patterns that serve us, so that we can go on a journey of truly achieving who we are as humans. Does that make any sense to you guys? I really, really hope it does. That's the essence of what we are going to learn in this course. We're going to focus on creating those programs or patterns, because you need to realize your brain works very similar to a computer. There's a hard drive, there's input of information, and there are buttons. What happens in your life when certain buttons get pressed? You can either press your relationship button, you can press your work button, you can press your finances button, you can press your personal health button, you can press your lifestyle button. All these things are programs, and the brain loves to put them on automation mode. The question is, does those programs serve you, or should some of them be upgraded? And is there a possibility that maybe there's even a bit of a virus in that brain? Let's understand some of the absolute basics about us as humans. For us to understand how the brain works, we need to look at how we interact with the rest of the world. Now, so there's an external world and there's an internal world. There's an external, what we observe, what we interact with, and what we experience. So as you're sitting in whatever chair you're sitting in, the room you're sitting in, if you look around the room, everything you see on the outside of you is the external world. Is that clear? That's simplistic enough, right? But between the external world, there's a few processes. The first one we need to understand is that when we see something or experience something on the outside, that's merely raw external data. So if you look at something, most people think, I'm sitting where I'm sitting, I've got a beautiful view over a green belt with trees and there's birds, and partially I also see some wall section with a bookshelf, and there's a lot of books on that shelf. I see these things with my eye on the outside of me. What most people don't realize is I'm actually not seeing that bookshelf over there. What is happening, if you remember from school days, where's the teachers here? There's someone here that's a teacher, right? How does the eye work? we actually don't see what's on the outside of us. What we see is light reflecting from some solid substrate. That light bounces back into the back of the eye, upside down image, and then it gets processed inside the brain into a visual image. Is that correct? So here's the thing we need to realize. Even though we believe that we are interacting with an external world, our experience of the interaction actually happens on the internal. You hearing my voice at the moment, my vocal cords are actually not making a sound. My vocal cords are merely creating airwaves. Now, I want you guys just let this settle in a little bit. So I'm creating airwaves that are actually caught up by this little thing next to me called a microphone. It's then converted into binary code, which is nothing else but a whole bunch of ones and zeros. It's shot through the air electronically through satellites and everything else to wherever you are. It then goes into a little speaker. And what does the speaker do? The speaker doesn't make a sound. What does the speaker do? It creates airwaves, and they travel through the air. They enter your inner ear, and inside of your brain, that is now converted into a sound that you're hearing. So once again, there's something that's happening on the outside of us that goes through a process where we internal create, and this is the key word, perception. Our understanding of what we saw or heard on the outside. How many times have you looked at things and someone else looks at exactly the same thing, but the two of you see something different? I remember as a kid, we used to lie on the grass on our backs, and we used to look up at the sky when it was a cloudy day. Who's done that before? And you see shapes in the clouds, maybe a face or an animal or something, and someone else is lying next to you, but they're not seeing the same as you do. And yet both of us are looking at the same cloud. How is that possible? Perception. Perception. Have you ever said something to someone and you said it correctly, but they took it up the wrong way? Perception. The key we need to the first key, the most important key we need to understand. There's a difference between external raw data and internal perception. Let me prove it to you guys a little bit. Can you guys all look around the room you're sitting in, scan your eyes, and find how many items you see that's brown? Look around, count them. How many things can you find that is brown? Now, close your eyes quickly. Just close your eyes. How many things do you see that was red? Can you remember? Now look around the room quickly and notice how many things can you see that's red? Are you noticing things now that you didn't notice before when I asked you to look for brown? What you were doing is you were focusing on one particular color on the outside of you, but yet your internal perception was aligned to what you were focusing on, which means you didn't see all the things that are red. If you now look differently, almost through a new or different lens, you can now become aware of certain other things that's around you that are red. So here's the thing I want you guys to understand. Sometimes we look at things on the outside of us, and we look at physical things, we look at emotional things, we look at behaviors, we look at experiences, we look at people, we look at expressions, we look at interactions, we look at animals, we look at nature, we look at everything on the outside of us. And we create a limited perception of what we see. We create a limited perception of what is actually on the outside of us. It is impossible for the human brain to fully grasp and understand and focus on everything that is actually happening around us in this magnificent world. Let's break that down. On the outside of you, when you are awake, the smart guys say they can measure how much the human brain is exposed to every second. And we measure that in raw data. And the raw data is measured in bits. So when we talk about a computer power, we talk about bits. Data is measured in bits. Everybody happy and clear so far on that one? Now, here's the thing. On the outside of us, there's different schools of thoughts and different numbers people come up with. But the basic numbers are anything between 20 to about 40 million bits of data. So when you are awake, when you are in an active state, the state you are in now, and you look around you, you are exposed to, if you're sitting in a room, if you're going to a shopping mall, if you're walking in nature, it doesn't really matter where you are. At any given moment, you are exposed to at least 20 to 40 million little bits of data. Now, my conscious brain, that part of the brain which we believe is so bloody smart, how much of that 20 to 40 million bits of data, this massive soup pot of information and things happening around you, how much do you think your active brain can actually focus on in any given second? Now, you're exposed to about 20 to 40 billion. Your active brain can only, on a bad day, focus on 5 bits. On a really, really good day, you're almost twice as smart. You can focus on about 9 bits. We call that the 7 plus minus 2 principle. Our human brains can actually focus on very little information at a time. That's 7 plus minus 2 bits per second. 7 minus 2 is 5, 7 plus 2 is 9. We call it the 7 plus minus 2 principle. That's what our conscious brain can actually focus on at a moment, at any given second. So you're exposed to this vast amount of information, yet you can only focus on 7 plus minus 2. But let's look at it from a different angle. What if consciously your brain focused on everything around you, using all 5 of your senses? So think about this quickly. What if you could focus on everything your eyes can see? All the colors, all the patterns, all the shapes, all the movement, everything. Focus on it. What if? What if your ears at the same time would focus on every sound you hear? Now, it sounds simple if you're sitting in a quiet room, but what if you're in a shopping center where you see a lot, where you hear a lot? What if you take a walk in nature? What if you go scuba diving, it's 20 meters beneath the surface? There's a huge amount of sounds going on. If you're in a corporate office, how many sounds are there? So what if you had to look and see everything? What if you had to hear everything? Let's bring in the next sense. My touch sense, my kinesthetic sense. We feel a lot. You're feeling the chair under your bum right now. You're feeling the clothing on your body. If you're wearing glasses, you're feeling that. You're feeling temperature on your skin. If you're holding a pen, you're feeling that in your hand. You might be hungry. You're feeling hungry. We are feeling a vast amount of things. So what if your brain had to see everything around you, hear everything around you, and feel everything, and focus on all of it? Let's bring in another sense. What about your smell sense, your olfactory sense? How many smells? I don't know. Maybe there's a smell in your room. If you go into a shopping center with a food court area, how many smells are there? If you go into a large shopping center, you're going from one shop to another, how many smells are there? Are you in nature? How many smells are there? If you drive your car and your windows open, how many smells are there? What if you saw everything, heard everything, felt everything, smelled everything, and focused on all of that data? Let's add another sense, our gustatory sense, what I can taste and what's happening in my gustatory process. Whatever you had for breakfast, coffee or tea, to drink, to eat, whatever, that's on your palate. That's something you're experiencing at the moment. Your saliva is constantly altering its own taste. It's going through a process of change the whole time. And I'm tasting things. If you think about something you want to have for lunch, your mouth even tastes it in its own imaginary state. What if I saw everything, focused on what I saw, heard everything, focused on what I heard, felt everything, focused on what I felt, smelled everything, focused on what I smelled, tasted everything, and focused on what I tasted, what would happen to your brain? First lesson you guys need to grasp. On the outside of you, there's a vast amount of information, raw data. The way we humans experience life is through the exposure to the external, where we use our five senses to gather some of this data. But inside our brains, there's a processing that happens, and that creates a limited perception of the external reality. It's very similar to drawing a map. Who remembers in the old days before Google Maps and pin dropping your location? If someone wanted to come to you, what did we do? We took a piece of paper and a pen and we drew a map. Who's drawn a map for someone to come to you where you are and they got completely lost? Because you drew the map and you wrote there, big white building, turn left. And that person went right past that big white building. They didn't even see it. In your perception, it was a big white building. In their perception, it was just another building. And they drove past it. Ever happened? So here's the first thing we need to realize. Whatever data you store in your internal map about reality is unique to you. We all create a representation, a perception of this magnificent thing called life. But we create it according to our selection process of which pieces of the external data do we take in and process and utilize to create our representation of this world. If I'm going to draw a map, I live in Joburg. Anybody else in Joburg or has been in Joburg, knows Joburg, seen Joburg? If I ask all of you guys to draw a map of Johannesburg, do you guys agree that those maps would most probably all look different? The human brain, internally, and we call it our map of reality, we create a representation internally of this magnificent world. And our representation is limited and unique. There are no two people on this planet that shares the exact same map. Is it possible that we will have a lot of similar things on the map? Yes. But it doesn't mean the map is exactly the same. So first rule in coaching, when I coach a client, I need to grasp that their representation of reality is not necessarily mine. When I coach them, I don't coach them according to my representation of reality. I don't coach them according to my map of the world. I coach them according to their map of the world. Because in my map, certain things are very easy. In their map, the same thing could be very difficult. I'll give you a quick, simple example. Public speaking. For the average person around the world, speaking in a group like this, on a platform like this, in front of other people that they've never met before, is nerve-wracking. Have you guys noticed? For me, it's just the norm. I'm not nervous. It's easy. I find it extremely easy. Does that make me better? Does that make other people better? No, there's no good, better, or worse. There's just your map's different. This is my map of reality. That's your map. Inside of my map, I have certain things that I believe are easy. But you've got things in your map that you find extremely easy that I find very difficult. So if we go into a conversation and you're trying to help me, You can't go, well, just shake it off and just do it. It's so easy, man. Just easy peasy. I need to have an understanding that your map is different to mine and that my map is different to yours. Is that cool, everybody? So when we coach, I want to say it the nicest way possible. Park your ego of your own map. We're very proud of our own maps. We're very proud, and inside of our own maps, we have so many things we believe. And oh my goodness, how dare any other person challenge what I believe? Then we go into defensive mode. When I coach, it's not about me, it's not about my map, it's not about my beliefs, it's all about the client. Yep. So how is the map shaped? How is the map created? And is there things like good maps or bad maps? No. There's only some maps or representations of reality that serve the person or that doesn't serve them. If your map serves you, keep it. If there's parts of your map that doesn't serve you, change it. When clients come to us for coaching, they come most of the time because something in their map is not serving them. So the techniques, the processes we teach is how do I guide my client through a process where they can rewrite their map and install information that serves them.